Hi, I'm Selena from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester, and I'm here with Marshall Karp, who is a thriller writer. And Marshall, for readers unfamiliar with your work, and I know you have written a number, seven, I believe, of James Patterson's books. For readers unfamiliar with your work, how would you describe what you write?
Oh, well, by the way, hi. For readers unfamiliar with the sound of heavy breathing in the background, that's Kylie, who's just out there running around, so she's panting. So don't get any weird ideas. I would actually say, interesting question, because I have written 5 books in the Lomax and Biggs series, LAPD
Yes.
Cops, and those are all police procedural. I wrote one standalone book for Jim, and then the next 6 books, NYPD Red 2 and 3 and 4, and then Red Alert, because we thought 5 wouldn't connect with people, and then Red 6. Those are all police procedurals, and you know what that's about. Somebody gets killed, the cops, we have a great team of cops, and they go after the bad guys, and they figure it out, and they have to deal with all the politics of police. Boom. Snowstorm in August, which you don't have a copy, so for the benefit of those who live near your store and are still waiting, here it is. And Snowstorm in August, I don't know if you can tell the cover, that is a helicopter, and it is spraying some really ugly white dust over Central Park, which is jam-packed with people. And it's not snow, it's cocaine, which are the last few words in chapter 1. And since my job in chapter 1 is to get you hooked, when Central Park is covered with 4,000 pounds of cocaine, well, I'm hoping a lot of people are going to want to turn to chapter 2. But this is not police procedural. This is what you said before. This is a thriller. So I broke all the rules that I didn't have. Well, I broke all the rules because I didn't have to go by the rules. I spent a lot of time working with cops, understanding how cops think and how cops figure out crimes. And so I should have turned this off before I get here. But you notice that the ringtone is help. That's because everybody who calls me. Anyway, the cops that I hang out with, they keep me honest. But in this case, in Snowstorm in August, this is a terrorist attack on New York City. I mean, who is behind dumping thousands of pounds of cocaine? What kind of terrorist is doing that? Well, not only will you find out a couple of chapters down the road, but it took me a long time to figure out who's going to do it. Once I had, oh yes, Central Park covered in cocaine. Who would do that and why? And, you know, but the only cops who can solve this kind of terrorist attack belong to a unit that has been banned or disbanded. You know, and why did they get disbanded? Me good with English language. Anyway, that's why I have a copy of Roget's famous whatchamacallit. But where was I? So how did these cops get disbanded? I'll figure that out too. And I figure that out in chapter 4. So now you have the worst terror attack, an enemy against New York. He's coming back with more and no cops to solve it. And so I put together a group of people who had a lot of money and a lot of passion for the city of New York. And they got the best cops they could find, retired cops from around the world. So there's a lot of rule breaking because this is a Mission Impossible force. By the way, I hope one of your locals is like a major Hollywood producer, and I'll send you a signed copy for him or her, or a director like Catherine Bigelow who can. This is a blockbuster movie. This is this is a thriller. It's what it is. And I loved writing it. And people love reading it. If you read some of the reviews online from, there's some kind of company that sells books online. I forget the name of them, but I'm sure you've heard of them. But the reviews say this should be a movie. This should be a movie. This was so exciting.
It sounds like it really should be a movie.
It is. It should be a movie. But no, alas, it's just a brief.
Not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, no, okay.
Okay.
So I don't know if I
came out.
answered the question, but what I've done is police procedural, and I have another book coming out, the NYPD Red series. I may as well get the plug in now in case the joint is raided and we get kicked out. But this is the advanced copy of NYPD Red 7, okay? NYPD Red 7, The Murder Sorority. And don't worry if you haven't read the other 6. All the NYPD Red books are designed to stand alone and give you about, you could watch the 5th season, 12th episode of Law and Order and get it. That's the point.
Right.
And instead of James Patterson on the top and me on the bottom, I wrote the book and he generously endorses it on the bottom, saying, what a lovely person I am, and Marshall write good, stuff like that. And so I've gone from police procedural to thriller. And you didn't ask, but at one point a couple of years ago, I just decided I had to get away from all this crime and violence and murder. And I wrote a book, which I still am tweaking it, so it's not quite ready for publication. And I'm sharing it with the people of Worcester, who will never tell anybody. But it's a woman's point of view about a woman who's going through a serious health issue. And she knows she's going to die because she's going through the same issue that her mother went through. And when she was a teenager and her mother died, her father was just a good looking, nice guy, provider, not a rock star, but a 43-year-old single man in a small town. So he's a target. A lot of women wanted to get their casseroles into this guy. And that's the name of the book, Women with Casseroles. And this woman now, she's the same age as her mother. She's dying. She realized they're going to come after her husband. And it did not go well with her father. She watched it. She was 17 and 18, and it was a disaster. So what does she do? She's trying to find her perfect replacement before she dies. And she's also trying to prevent the other possible replacements from sinking their, it's such a politically correct world. I can't use hooks, but I can say sinking their casseroles. I love writing. I don't think I have a genre, except now I'm writing murder, and I wake up in the morning and I think, who am I gonna kill, and where am I going to bury the body, and how do I hide the weapon? But I've also written comedy for TV. I've written a play. I did a feature film that was really great. It's, don't tell anybody, but it's on my website. People could see it for free if they don't blab it all over the street, and they can watch the movie. It's called Just Looking, and it's a coming of age comedy about a kid growing up in the 50s, and he's fascinated by sex, but it's the 50s. What could he do? You can't, nowadays, you just have to, open your laptop or your watch and you can, but back then, he wanted to know what it was all about. So he dedicated his summer vacation to trying to see to
Mhm.
people doing it. And from that intense sophomore premise comes like an absolutely fun, touching, charming movie with Patti LuPone and Gretchen Mol and a few other really named people, and directed by Jason Alexander, who I had been friends with before and since and during and after.
That sounds
What
like
was the question?
No, I had heard that you were not really a writer for a long, long time before, that you were in advertising.
What do you
And
think I did in advertising, though?
well, you were writing in
Well,
advertising.
here's the deal, as I say in one of my bios. Yeah, I got into business. My stuff won a lot of awards. Clients love me. The agency loved me. The punishment for being a good writer in advertising is to put you, in charge of everything. And suddenly you're running an advertising agency and you're not writing. And I have 100 people working for me, and they're lined up in my, oh, Marshall, what do you think? What do you think? What do you? And that's why I left advertising. And
Right.
somewhere in the middle of it all, I had I guess my first midlife crisis. And I've also written a lot of things online about midlife crisis and people who want to. I'm tired of being a dentist. I'm 42 years old. Am I going to do this for the rest of my life because my mother wanted me to go to dental school? And my mother doesn't even remember that I'm a dentist now. She doesn't care. She only talks about the grandchildren. So it dawned on me that at the age of 40, I was still living the dream of my parents and some 20-year-old kid who said, okay, I'll be a dentist. And I wanted to live for the guy I am now. I said, you know what I would like to do? I'd like to be, when I'm 50 years old, I will be upstate, living in a house in upstate New York and writing murder mysteries. And from 5 years, I had a game plan. And 5 years later, I was working in Hollywood. And 10 years after that, I was writing my first book, killing off all the jerks I met in Hollywood, trying to keep this PG at least. But so I've been a writer. I actually have been a writer so long that I have now just recently decided, after watching a lot of things on Masterclass, I decided I'm going to do 15 or 20 10-minute videos teaching people what I know about how to write. I think that there are, let me just do
Your
one
video
thing.
kind of stopped.
Yeah, it's because,
Oh, there you go.
yeah, I'm going to do a bunch of videos teaching people how to write. I know a lot, and it's not a money-making proposition. My objective isn't to sell books. It's just kind of, over the years, I was given a lot of help when I was in advertising, when I was in television, when I did the play, when I was in book. People who had been there before me gave me some great advice, incredible advice, which I can do if you want to write a book. Or my course will focus on books, but if you want to write a screenplay, if you want to get into any form of writing, I'm not going to tell you how to make $1 million doing it. I'm going to tell you how you can get the author that's in you out of you.
So what is it? What piece of advice would you want to give to other writers? What's the one thing that you think is the best piece of advice?
I don't know that there's any one thing, but the broadest big piece of advice is, especially those who are trying to get published. I'll give it to you in a couple of ways. There are 1 million people out there who can stop you from becoming a published author. Just look at the system. you tell me how many people are there who can stop you from being a writer.
Mm.
And I will quote, I guess it's the guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's Richard Bach, I think. I don't want to get his name wrong. A professional writer is an amateur who didn't quit. Mark Twain was an amateur. Joyce Carol Oates was an amateur. James Patterson was an amateur. Toni Morrison was an amateur. Jim talks about having his first novel rejected by 30 publishers. Yeah, I know that feeling. Ugh. But I was still happy that I wrote that book. And eventually, if you keep writing and keep perfecting your craft, you will find an audience for it. And these days, the world has changed that you can self-publish. I've told people who are like, in their grandparenting years, they have stories to share with the next 2 generations down. And I said, so write it, pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get on the bestseller list writing a book that's coming from your heart. Yes, you might. When my grandson was 6 years old, he said to me, "You write books." I go, "Well, yeah, you can finally read the ego wall up there, Marshall Karp, Marshall Karp, Marshall Karp." I didn't even put my name on the bottom. You should remind them that it's Marshall Karp. But he goes, "Yeah." He said, "Will you teach me how to write a book?" Well, I said, only if you want to learn the process. I'll take, we used to do it, I went to grandma's house for Thanksgiving. I threw up on the throughway and I had a good time. That was the book. But I said, "Do you want to learn about how to write a book?" And yeah. And it took us 2 years. He contributed an amazing amount for a little kid. Amazing amount, because I kept picking his brain. All right. Who's the hero? Okay. What's his name? Shamur. How do you spell that? Because it isn't a name, but yes, it was Shamur. And I said, "Well, why do I care about Shamur today when we meet him? What's so important? Is he excited about it?" Yes, it's his birthday and he's going to this big county fair thing. And I said, "Oh, all right, that is exciting. It's a big day for him now. Do you know what conflict is?" And he goes, "No." I said, "You're 6. It'll come. But here's the deal. We have to wreck his plans. He's got a big plan. Now we have to completely wreck it. What would ruin his plans?" He says, "His grandfather gets sick." I said, "Well, thank you for not killing his grandfather. But his grandfather gets sick. Great." So the parties can't. I said, "Well, where does his grandfather live? Because if he doesn't live that far, we could do 2 things in one day." He goes, "His grandfather lives in Australia." He goes, "He's 6. I go, "That is way cool. I wouldn't have thought of that, So now, if mom wants to go visit grandpa, she's going to Australia. Goodbye party." I said, "Oh, but why would she take Shamur? I mean, he's got a dad. Dad could take care of him. How do you solve that problem?" He goes, "His father's on a business trip in London." I'm like, "You are so cool." I'll tell you what, I'm just going to I was going to get up and get the book, but I don't have to. And
we're kind of running out of time here.
I'm sorry. We wrote this book, Shamur's 10,000 Mile Birthday, and took 2 years. And we published it for the family. Do you know how joyful that is? If you have grandchildren, you could do that. You can't do that with your kids.
That's true. So
Anyway, ask him. I'm sorry, but this is me. I'm clearly, I'm not promoting anything, but all my books are on my website, karpkills.com. The trailer for Snowstorm in August is on, and that's a pretty decent little 55-second movie of what it could be. And now I'm going to let you ask me 12 more questions, and I'll rattle off the answers.
Okay, I just wanted to find out, what was the inspiration for Snowstorm in August?
I just looking, I hang around with this cop and we just kick around these ideas. And we had inspiration for 3 or 4 different possibilities, different books. And the cocaine in Central Park seemed like impossible to do. But then I had another idea about this courtroom drama that is so, it's so powerful in the early chapters that I knew it would grab people, but I didn't know how to make it a book. You probably could say to me, Marshall, I have a fascinating life working here in the bookstore. I could write a book, and then you'll tell me 2 or 3 or 4 great little anecdotes, and I'll go, okay, well, that's the first 4 chapters. What's the book? So you have a lot of ideas, and they're banging around, and suddenly I had, and there was actually a there was the NYPD did an exercise where they flew over the Statue of Liberty because there were fake terrorists down there. They were just doing a dry run exercise, and one of the cops I know was on the helicopter, and he was telling me, and it was so exciting. And I thought, like, that is really cool. Now, what would happen if things went wrong? And all these things crashing around. And one day I figured out how they could come together. I don't know how, people say, how do I get inspired? It's as much perspiration as inspiration. You're just coming up with idea, and you go, how far can this go? How interesting can this be to the reader? Am I qualified to write it? Stuff like that. But I'm sure there are people out there who shop in your store all the time who have a great idea for a book. Start there. And if you sell Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, tell anyone who wants to write a book, they should read Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, or On Writing by Stephen King.
Yes.
Those are Bibles.
Yes.
Anyone who wants to learn about the craft. Remember, you're just trying to write a book. You're not trying to be a bestseller. You're not trying to be famous. You're not trying to be anything. There's a book in you. Get it out. My grandson and I, we had a great time. The book is published. And then my agent said, we could sell this, especially if you wrote a section at the end to grandparents on how to do this with your grandchildren. And we decided to just keep it in the family, and
makes sense.
Only 100 copies out there. They're kind of almost like non-fungible tokens now.
So, and what kind of research went into writing this?
Good question. A ton of research.
I figured that. Yeah.
First of all, it's always weird checking my search history. How many pounds of cocaine would it take to, blanket Central Park and kill thousands? Google's almost like, wait a minute. It's like a ton of research. Everywhere I turn, learning about the drug business in Mexico. But of course, my ace in the hole is the main character in Snowstorm in August is Danny Corcoran, but there is a real life Danny Corcoran who I met when he was an NYPD homicide detective, and he helped me out a little bit here, a little bit there, and then he retired, and now he's like, we sit and talk all day long when I'm coming up with an idea for a book, because part of the research is what would really happen. There's one section where the drug lord has cocaine, a lot of it, that will make people blind if they inhale it, if they snort cocaine. Is that real? Could that possibly happen? So I called up my eye doctor and I said, Diane, I know you only do, you only practice medicine for good, but I need your help for evil. How could, I gave her the problem, and it wasn't easy to figure out, but that's research. And I mean,
you had people helping you research.
Other people. I went to the Los Angeles County morgue when I was writing a book, my second book, Bloodthirsty, about the Los Angeles County morgue. It is nothing like you see. They don't have big steel drawers and what. There's bodies all over the place like that with tarps over them. They can't afford body bags, because when I got there, the guys, it's the biggest morgue in the country, because New York has 4, LA has 1. There were 129 bodies there that morning. And I said to the guy, he goes, that's how we make our money, volume. Then you realize that everybody having to do with death, law enforcement, life and death situations, they have to have this black sense of humor. Otherwise they go crazy. They have to laugh. They had a gift shop at the LA County morgue, and, big chef's aprons that said, spare ribs, spare hands, spare feet, funny stuff. But I spent an hour and a half. No, wait, I'm sorry, 3 hours at the LA County morgue, just so I could write a page and a half talking about what the morgue is. And I felt so good, because if you start writing about police work based on what you know from what you saw in the movies, it's going to be, there's a dame on the corner of Broadway and 10th calling all cars. I mean, it's going to be fake. I could not write about what it's like to own or work in a bookstore unless I spent a day in a bookstore with you. What is it really like? What are the problems with it? Research is what the book is all about. Unless you're doing sci-fi or some weird fiction, but even then, the characters have to have a ring of truth. Star Wars may be all fantasy, but it's filled with things we believe. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
That makes perfect sense.
Well, that's one in a row.
So what is your favorite part of being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Not the publishing.
Yeah.
Not the publishing. I mean, I just got a box, a big box of these, right? Mm-hmm. And then a couple of months later, I got a big box of these. And so the publisher told me to video myself unboxing. That is you think, I've done this 13 times before. Well, it's like when I first time I hit the #1 bestseller list in the New York Times, I said to Patterson, you must be used to this by now. He goes, it never gets old. Mm. Yeah. So I think it's such a great question. The best part about the whole writing process is when you break through with something you didn't know was going to happen, and it like just opens up. There's a thing. I mean, those are my first 4 books up there. I don't know if you can see, but Cut, Paste, Kill. When I was trying to figure out the ending, and I got this incredible ending that just blew me away, and I remember just jumping up and down with excitement for, and then wanting to get it out. It's the worst part to me is what I'm doing now, which is the shameless self-promotion. I love writing. I love teaching about writing. I love writing books. It's just, but the best part is when you are screaming at your screen going, yes, yes, yes. And your wife comes in and says, who are you with? I go, no. It's like, try it. What's the best part of any job? Ask anybody, whatever they do. What's the best part? You're a carpenter. Do you feel good at the end of the day when you step back and look what you created? You're a doctor. Do you feel good when your patient reaches, thank you. What you did changed my life. I mean, it's what you do every day. So it's a great question to ask anybody on the bus. What's the best part of your job? What's the best part of being a parent? What's the best part of your marriage? What's the best part of anything? It's, I think, when you feel the joy. Mm-hmm. And you never know when joy is going to come right up and smack you upside the head and go, here I am.
Good point. I just have one more question for you. Where can people find your where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? When we can get your books?
Well, hold on. This is not
we
a plug.
Will be getting it very soon.
All right. Start. All right. My name is Marshall Karp, K-A-R-P. Start with my website, karpkills.com, KARPKILLS.com. All my books are on it. The ones I wrote solo, the ones I did with Patterson. In most cases, especially on my books, there's a bunch of free chapters so people can sample it. If you type my name into Google, it will come up with, here's Marshall, here's how old he is, dirty little secret that it is. I used to say that I was born in 1900, and I was enjoying telling people that I was 122 years old, but I think they still got it wrong, but it doesn't matter. They zeroed in on a year, and I don't argue with them. But all my stuff. And I think people are hip. If they see a writer and they can figure out, remember his name, they're going to type it in and boom, it'll come up. But if they do want to buy the book, I would really encourage them to do it at their local bookstore, because otherwise their local bookstore isn't going to be there. And I don't know what will be there, but it won't be as much fun. It won't be the kind of haven that a bookstore is. So you can find my books anywhere. You can find them in a lot of different countries. And nowadays, there are no secrets from anyone. So, great. And if they have any trouble, you'll help them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Or send me an email.
Yep.
Marshall@karpkills.com.
And you can
especially
also
send me an email if anybody watches this and they're kind of interested in a course on writing. I'm just putting this together. I don't even have the syllabus. what would you want to know from a guy who's been around, learned a lot, and can communicate it without putting you to sleep? Notice that you're not asleep.
Definitely not. And I had heard that your books are much more humorous than
Yeah. Well,
better
that's a double-edged sword. Seriously, Selena. The Lomax and Biggs
yes,
book,
that's what
The Rabbit Factory,
yeah.
Bloodthirsty, Flipping Out, Cut, Paste, Kill, Terminal. Those two characters, I mean, think way back to like I think it was Moonlighting with Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. They were so funny together.
Great show.
My two cops, Mike Lomax and Terry Biggs, they are funny, but it's a lot of writers can't do it. You can't be funny, when you're doing crime. You have to know when it comes in and when it doesn't. And in the case of Lomax and Biggs, Terry Biggs is a cop who's thinking when he retires, he wants to be a stand-up comic. So he's really good. But the NYPD Red it's got the charm. If you watch shows like NCIS, they're dramas, but the characters have this banter, this humanity to them. And yes, I wrote comedy. I worked on television shows. My movie is a comedy. I crack wise and get in trouble. My marriage was saved by the fact that I can make my wife laugh all day long. Really, humor goes a long way. And so, yes, my books are funny, but you read The Rabbit Factory, which I don't know if you can get it in Annie's bookstop, but you can find The Rabbit Factory online. I promise you, you will laugh, you will cry, and you will be gobsmacked at the end of it saying, damn, I never figured it out. The Rabbit Factory by Marshall Karp.
Great.
And I just republished that on the website that shall not be named. It's available because there's so many older copies on that are overpriced. So I republished it at the fairest price I could, and my old books are still good. They're, they really hold up.
Great.
As do I.
Yes, you certainly do. Well, thank you so much for.
Well, thank you thank you for tolerating me.
And there's your dog.
Say goodbye. Okay.
Does your dog help or hinder you with your work?
Oh, an incredible help, because you know what writers are looking for, don't you? All the time. You know what it is? You muted yourself, but what writers are always looking for are distractions.
Yes.
And my dog is like, let's play ball, so.
Great.
All right.
Thank you so much. And hopefully we will someday see you at our bookstore in Worcester. It's Snowstorm in August by Marshall Karp.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.